Good morning. Today is another Erev, which means before our holiday, which is Hanukkah coming up, the holiday of miracles. I'm actually doing this recording on Thursday. I usually do them on Friday because I've decided you never know what miracles could happen during Hanukkah. And I'm prepared to light the menorah lights and see what happens. Worked for the Maccabees about 2,500 years ago when they defeated an army of oppressors. And it's actually documented because we've seen the coinage of the day. So they only had oil for one day to fight, and they were able to illuminate their way for 8. Well, today started off in New York City. Pretty glorious, in fact, indeed. We had the best sunrise, and I guess I haven't been up early enough to see sunrises in New York City. And I saw the bright oranges and yellows reflected off of the buildings across from mine. It was glorious. So I guess this is the beginning of what I think is a good start to the holidays. Even though the news from Congress isn't good as far as I'm concerned, I would have liked to have seen the aid packages for Israel and for the Ukraine to have passed. For Israel, because I think they're in the final days, no matter what anyone says of their campaign in Gaza. And do I think it's unfortunate that people died? You bet. I think it's unfortunate on both sides, and so unnecessary. What stops people from cooperation? Why do people hate? I know people hate, and I know we have to arm ourselves all the time so that nobody becomes an aggressor against us, meaning the United States. And so far, we're lucky. But in other nations, they're not so lucky. People have hatred in their hearts. It's just like Golda Meir said, that when the Palestinians love their children as much as the Jewish people love theirs, they won't have war. And if I was a Gazan, I would be casting out Hamas in a nanosecond. Not only do 50% of the population of Gaza live in poverty, not only are they being displaced by this war that Hamas committed, but they take aid from all over the world. And they are well equipped, well armed, with a lot of missiles, the latest technology. Just like Iran supplies Russia, they're supplying all these terrorist groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, and others. Oh, and the Houthis with ballistic missiles. No wonder Saudi Arabia is finding it difficult. So it would be easy to stop the war in Gaza. The people have to just give up Hamas, get away from them, and have Hamas surrender. Give back the people that they've taken hostages, that they've abused, and let Israel live in peace. The Ukrainians, it's a pity what's happening to them. Russia, because they, like Hamas, Putin feels he has no other reason to live except to declare war on others. Well, he's doing a good job helping Iran, helping the terrorists, and now decimating grain silos, and destroying probably the crops that feed the global south, that feed China and other regions of the world. For what? For what? And our Republican Party doesn't want to arm Ukraine. Why? Because you're aligned with Donald Trump, who hates this new Ukrainian regime, this new regime that wants to be democratic? Because the democratic sovereignty of Ukrainians doesn't support his best bud, which is Putin. Their relationship goes back 30 years. It was documented. Well, now it's almost 40. It was documented in the Financial Times on December 13th, 2016. I have it right in my book with the Mueller report, the redacted version, and its consequences. Unfortunately, it's coming true. That's why when everyone says we don't need a third party, we need a third party. I had a lot of names I was going to call my third party, but I think the Democratic Republican Party, which is really what the founding fathers started with to begin with, is probably appropriate right now. I'm a centrist. I don't like the far left, not the Antifa folks because they barely exist, but the far left that doesn't like the Israelis and voted against the aid package and has been coming out with some pretty anti-Semitic remarks. That's not how I feel. And I don't like this Trump Republican Party either, because they don't stand for the democratic ideals that I value. So sure, if Liz Cheney thinks she wants to run, well, I hope she'll consider taking me on with her and my Democratic Republican Party. That would be the right thing to do, a split ticket. I actually proposed that to Mitt Romney before the 2016 election. I wrote him a note and said, I think we got to stop Donald Trump from getting into power. We need a third party. But I've been espousing a third party since 2012 because I could see it coming. I could see where the direction of the Republican Party was going. Did I think that the Democratic Party was going to have a far left influence as well? Neither extreme is good. I'm a centrist. And realistically, I probably have to upgrade the platform that's on WordPress. But realistically, yeah, I believe that we could look at immigration and immigration reform. And I think we got to look at the immigrants who are in our country and give them a path to citizenship. Some of them have been here 40, 50 years, almost their entire lives. It's about time we gave them citizenship, we acknowledge that they're here, and we let them come out of the shadows. They've worked so long in some industries that they're ready to retire. I think it's time to give them a living wage of some sort and some kind of a pension. They can't just drop dead on the job. It's not the American way. So I stand for immigration reform, and I stand for the immigrants who are in our country and deserve a break. And I stand with labor. I always have. I always will. As a boss, I was a good boss. And when I worked for multinationals, every multinational I worked for up through the late 80s was decent to all their people. Am I pleased that labor is finally being heard? You bet, because unionization is helping everyone. The Teamsters are now helping the many public institutions in California to get raises for the faculty. After all, the CEOs of a lot of these public universities are getting about $600,000 a year plus perks. The administrators are making about $450,000. Doesn't labor deserve to make a living wage so that they can have a rent or a home that they can afford? So, as far as our economy is concerned, it's doing better than most people think, though the benchmark for the Fed is the inflation rate, which is low at 2.5%, and now they're going to look at jobs. And everyone's hoping the jobs numbers are low. Truthfully, I think America can afford to put in more workers so that the interface with the public would be a hell of a lot better. And we'd all be happier. And maybe we'd have a little bit more innovation. And I do know that when the Inflation Reduction Act kicks in, there'll be a lot more jobs. And hopefully they'll concentrate on broadband and high-speed rail, just like California is doing. They're going to have a link, finally, after 100 and some odd years, between LA and San Francisco. And there's going to be another link to Las Vegas. Well, I think those links should be happening all over the country. My granddaughter just returned from Japan. She said they had an all-inclusive pass to take high-speed rail all over Japan. She said it was wonderful. Within a couple of hours, you were in another city exploring their environment, their culture, their foods, and it was so easy. So, once again, what's on my mind? Israel's on my mind. I don't like people to suffer. I don't like it. Palestinians to suffer, or Israelis. Nobody should have to suffer if we can finally get rid of hatred in our hearts. And also stop buying all those missiles from Iran. Third party, it's a necessity. There is no Republican Party. And at any cost, I want to see Donald Trump out of the running for the presidency forever. To me, he is the biggest threat to democracy. He's the biggest threat to democracy as far as Liz Cheney is concerned as well, and Adam Kissinger, and everyone who was on the January 6th committee. I think the United States is heading in the right direction. We just got to get rid of the extremes on all sides of the political fence. And then we can work on other problems. So take care, everyone. Have a great day. And I'll see you next week. And I'll tell you if any miracles befell me. Right now, all I can say is one did. I feel super. And I hope to continue that way. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.